Hello everyone. So thank you for tuning in to this channel, and it's good to have you back. And in this video, we are going to be looking at this year's project. There is Azani Internet Service Provider that is in full. And for this series, we are going to do the database and the documentation, so that you can be seeing what is expected of you in this particular course. So thank you for tuning in. We are going to start with the documentation, and then we are going to the database. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
I'm going to launch my Word so that we can be viewing the live document from here. So I'm going to zoom in a bit so that we can be seeing what is happening. So for this particular documentation, you had to prepare the document, that is using the SDLC that you learned in Form 3. So that is what is expected. So you remember there were some 7 chapters that were followed when coming up with a system, that is the SDLC. But before that, you have some relevant titles that are here. As you can see on my screen, I have this is just an introduction page, or the page in which you are going to fill in your credentials, your name, and the likes. And then the other part, that is the declaration, in which you mention that the work should be done by you and you only. And then you also have the other part, that is the supervisor declaration as well. That just tries to affirm that the person that was carrying out that task was done by him and him only. And then you have the dedication. This is the part where we normally tackle about who would you like to dedicate this particular project to. If it's your parents, if it's your friends, your relatives, whoever you'd like to make a dedication to, you mention them here as well. And then you have the other bit, that is the acknowledgement. So this particular part is where you mention everyone you would like to acknowledge. That is maybe you'd like to remember them, you'd like to recall them, or maybe give a shout out to. So that is where you do mention that. And then you have a table of contents. This is where you organize your chapters and everything, all the relevant titles, you organize them up to the last chapter. As you can see on my screen, I have up to chapter 7. That is on page 52. And then below here I also have a list of figures. So that is what I do use. So this is what we are having right now, and it's up to date. So you have to start on the first chapter, that is problem recognition and definition. The second stage is normally information gathering. The third stage is requirement specification. The fourth stage is system design. The fifth stage is system coding. And then you have the sixth stage, that is system testing. And the last stage is system review and maintenance. So milestone 1 goes all the way to chapter 4, that is the system design stage. So in this first chapter, you don't do much of design work, you just do much of typing, where you introduce us, you give us a brief information about the company, what does the particular company deal with. So in this case, you have a history of the company, that the Azani Internet Service Provider is a scheme that is initiated by the Azani company to give the maybe for provision of internet services. And then you further come and say that in this case we say that the company offers internet related services that is specifically to institutions that are first registered in their Azani company. And as you know, when you register, you make a fee payment of 8,500, and then the company also offers various internet services. So if I take you back, or if you go back to the question paper, you saw that there were different bandwidths that were offered by this company, that were ranging from 4 Mbps all the way to 50 Mbps. So and those bandwidths were priced differently. So an institution will visit a site to inspect its readiness for internet installation. Things like users who are being recorded, the number of users, the computing infrastructure, and the LAN setup that was available there. So maybe the other part that would be set up was is if, for instance, the computing infrastructure isn't that ready, so you might decide to buy some computers from Azani at a different price. So but the computers were fixed at 40,000, and then the LAN nodes also are differently priced. If you are purchasing from 2 to 10 nodes, there is a price. From 10 to 20 nodes, there is a different price as well. So we have that. And also the last thing, the other thing that the company was offering was to upgrade. So there is upgrade options to the institutions, for instance, but this is normally on the bandwidth, the internet bandwidth. So if you are on a 4 Mbps package and you'd like to update this to a 10 Mbps package, you are being offered a 10% discount. But choosing a lower bandwidth does not give you any particular discount. And then all the institutions using the internet will have to pay by the end of the month, failure to which you will be subcharged a 15% fine on the amount that you are supposed to pay. So if you are on a 4 Mbps at a cost of 1,200, if you don't pay by the end of the month, you'll be charged a 15% fine. That is 15% of 1,200. But again, if for instance the next month or the coming month you surpass or you go beyond the 10th day of the next month, you will be automatically disconnected and required to pay a reconnection fee of 1,000, in addition to the monthly bill and the overdue fine. That is the 15% of the package that you are in. The 1,000 was for reconnection. So that is just an introduction of the company. So you have to mention things like those. And then the other thing you have to go about is the system analysis. That is the problem definition. Now you start defining the problem as well. You need a centralized and efficient, organized system for registration, for internet subscriptions, for equipment purchase, the fee collection, and subscription upgrades. And then you can tell us that maybe the current system is using a manual or kind of a system to make these recordings. So, and you can mention that this manual process would lead to difficulties in tracking substitutions, managing funds, and rules such as the monthly subscriptions and bandwidth upgrades. Yeah, and then you have to mention all that, and then you have to tell us that the system should be thoroughly documented to ensure the users and administrators have clear, comprehensive instructions for operation and ongoing maintenance. So you need to prepare documentation. That is this one that we are currently viewing here. You need to have such a documentation that the other users can be able to know what is happening with your particular system. So I'm going to move my camera there so that you can be seeing what is happening. So the other part that you can mention is the overview of the existing system, such that the existing system on the Azani Internet Company does rely on manual processes. So in this particular bit, what you're supposed to mention is what the system is currently using. Is it a manual process, or do they have an outdated system? Or you just give a brief overview of what the company is currently using, and then you can be able to maybe break down the processes that are involved. For instance, the institution registration, and okay, enrollment shouldn't be there. It is institution registration, because you cannot enroll an institution. So you can mention that maybe the current mode of registration is done manually by paperwork or files, yeah. And then you mention that these can be tedious and requires the database management system to capture this data, because once the data is saved, you don't have to worry about it getting lost and things like those. And then the service registration and payments, you can mention that the fees, the payments, the subscriptions all are done manually, and in this case this leads to errors, because if the papers get lost, then the records will be lost as well. And then we can break down and say that on the new system, payments will be captured digitally, including these registration fees, the installation fees, the monthly bandwidth charges based on the service level. So the 4 Mbps package. So this just means the different packages that are charged differently, and then the institutions that are upgrading the bandwidth will receive a 10% discount on the next higher bandwidth. And then you can also mention and say that the system will also compute overdue fines, that is 15%, and some reconnection fees of 1,000. And then you have the infrastructural requirements. You can just mention, because this system has various components. You have the infrastructure, you have the services, and you have the institutions. So in this particular bit, you can say that maybe the current infrastructure requirement maybe is recorded on paper manually, or you can just mention the other part that they are using, or whatever they are using to record these transactions. And then you can mention and say that in the computerized system, the infrastructure requirements is the computers, LAN nodes will be captured and stored. And then you can also mention that personal computers again are purchased at this particular amount, and then the LAN nodes are recorded according to cost breakdowns. For example, for 10 to 20 nodes, you purchase at for 10,000, and then the 41 to 100 nodes also have a different pricing. And then here, okay, we do not have events, we have services management. So you can mention that scheduling of services are currently done using handwritten documentation that is often misplaced. And then you can mention that the computer system will generate structured reports including list of registered institutions, the list of defaulters. Defaulters are those that have pending unpaid bills to the company, and then institutions with disconnection issues, and then you have infrastructure details per institutions. Then we have the record keeping and documentation. We have all the records, that is institutions. Okay, you now have events, members, that is the institutions, financial transaction expenses are currently stored on paper. So the computerized DBMS will do all of these. Will compute the total installation cost, will compute cost of assorted services, and generate monthly charges, including upgrades, due fines, and connection fees. And then we have aggregate amounts per institution for accountability. And then you can wrap that up with the overall need, and say that the manual system has a bit of challenges, and then the proposed system will do this and that. So there is that particular part. And then we have the overview of the proposed system. So we just give a system overview. That is what in detail, what in short is your proposed system intending to do. In short, if you come up with this particular system, what is it going to be doing? What is it going to be achieving? What is it going to be? What is expected of it? So that is what you mention in this particular bit here. And then after you do that, you can go sorry for that, you can go to the objectives of the intended system. So these are now what is your system going to achieve when or what are the plans of your system. That is what we have here. In this case, to maintain a centralized database for whatever. So we have all that, all the objectives, you have to list them here. So that is, objectives are what your system is intended to be solving, or what is being expected of this particular system. So this, in this particular part, is just an overview. The system maybe will have some reports, we have some tables, we generate some financial transactional reports. But in this case, we have the objectives of this intended system. That is, you have to list them down there, just like I did. I wrote 10 of them. And then we go to the other part, that is the benefits of the intended system. In this case is what profit or what benefit will we realize when we start using this particular system. So that is what we are having. So that is basically what we are having in this case. So the benefits you can mention is like the advantages of your system. So you can have you have enhanced accuracy and efficiency, improved data security, reduced administrative workload, improved compliance. So we have all that there. And then you go to the other part, that is the scope of this system. So the scope is it's like the boundaries in which your particular system is going to cover up. So in this case, you can just mention a brief of them. Just is like it will handle the institution registration, also the registration installation fee payments, the monthly bandwidth payments, the transaction keeping, the reports and analytics, infrastructural management, the user access control, the notifications and reminders, the data backup and security, the system scalability and integration. So this is just a brief scope of what our system would be having. And then we have the cost and benefit analysis. So this is just a feasibility study we are calling out so that we can see if this particular project is going to be doable. So you have to carry out a feasibility study. In this case, is what we are doing here. So I did that. So you can maybe say this particular system is going to be of benefit because of these particular reasons there. And then you can have some cost breakdown. In this case, I also added that according to my cost, I'm going to have an ROI of about 7%. So that is what you do that, and then you go ahead and do the feasibility study. So this is maybe feasibility study, you just examine funds. Do the funds that are there, are they particularly enough to cover out to kick off this particular project? So, and you have to consider some 4 types of feasibility. So in this case, you can mention the economic feasibility, the technical feasibility, and the operational feasibility. You can also have schedule feasibility if you'd like to add. So schedule feasibility just tries to explain to us that this particular project is going to be completed in this particular timeline. For our case, we are given 7 months. So that is what you mentioned, that the project is going to be taken in 7 months, and maybe you resolved with your team that you are going to be meeting more often, so that you can be discussing or you can view the objectives that you set up for this particular project. And then you have the economic feasibility, and this is just to determine the finances of the project. And then you have the technical feasibility, is just to examine the technology that is there, the computers, the developers, the team, the setup, and the likes. Then you have the operational feasibility, that is the operation. Here you just examine the operation of this particular project by maybe examining efficiencies and the likes. And then we have the data illustration. So this is another part, but it's not a type of feasibility. It's just a data illustration. So in this case, you can just tell us that you had a sample data set to maybe come up with the potential outcome. That is, for instance, you might be having some 100 users subscribing to the 10 Mbps package. So if this 10 Mbps package is going for 2,000, you have 100 users, then you can be having a generation or a possible income of 2,000 times 100. Yeah, that is, I don't know if it's 2 million or 200,000. I don't know. You can multiply that, and then you can also do that. So you can just maybe mention that it will generate a potential 525,000 according to my case study here. So that is what I did. And then the conclusion, you have based on the findings, it is feasible for the this system to be developed. So that is what we are having. And then we go ahead to the second chapter, that is the information gathering. The information gathering, we have here you have to mention that because for you to develop this system, you need to have some facts, or you need to have some data about the operation of this particular system. And by doing that, you require us to do what we call data gathering. In this case, you have to use the data gathering methods. We have a couple of them, but for me, I used the group discussions, the document analysis. We also have some questionnaires, and we have some workshops. Workshops are just similar related stuff, or you can find a similar internet providing company and maybe question them about some facts and data, and from there you can deduce some data or some discrepancies that might be there and the likes. And then after you do that, now you give us a conclusion of what you are finding out, and then the summary of the fact finding methods. And maybe you can give us some points here, that is what you saw with the what you observed during the data gathering. So this is what you give us here. And then you can lastly mention that the fact finding methods really push for a computerized database management system that can maybe solve these particular challenges that are there. And then you are through with the information gathering. And then just to add, maybe when we are doing this, you might also decide to come up with diagrams for the questionnaires, but it's not a must. But if you'd like to come up with questionnaires, you can also diagram them here. But in my case, I choose not to, because I can just give a summary of what I received from the questionnaires. And then we go to the other chapter, the second last chapter. That is the chapter 3, that is the system requirements and specification. So in this case, you have to specify the hardware and software requirements, so that so this particular bit is just easy. It's just to specify what is the hardware requirements for us to be able to run this particular system. So if for instance we require a computer, the name of the computer and the cost, and then we also require printers for printing the reports. We also require a flash disk to maybe store the system, the power backup just in case power goes off, the memory, that is the RAM. You have the storage disk, you can mention the same, and then you have the total there. Then you give some factors when you are going to purchase hardware. Those are the ones that you learned in Form 1. That is upgradability, authenticity, user friendliness, warranty, and the compatibility. So you do not want to buy a Mac OS based computer because, okay, not a Mac OS but a Linux based computer, because it's not going to be supporting this particular system because it uses Microsoft Access. Then you have the software requirements. So you require an operating system, in this case Microsoft Windows 11 or 10, or any Windows that supports Microsoft Office. Then you can also break down the cost for that. Then you have the application packages or the program, that is Microsoft Office 2013 with the Microsoft Access installed in it. Then you can also require a Net Explorer like Microsoft Edge, that is free. This is because maybe you might be wanting to troubleshoot some issues, or maybe trying to contact us, you might require a browser. So that is what you mention here. And then factors to consider when purchasing software, you also mention them there as well. And then I will go ahead to the system requirements. So you have the functional requirements. These are just the functions that have to be done by the system. So this is where you do that. So you break down all that here. And then you have the non-functional requirements. So these are just to maybe provide security for this particular system, so that the data integrity can be maintained. So you can mention them there as well and explain a bit. And then after you are through with that, you go to the system design. This is the last part. So in this case, you just cover the system flowchart, and then you can try to break down how the flow goes. And then as you can see, I have my diagram. So that is how it goes. So in this particular part, you just break down and maybe try to give us the flow of how it goes. I'm going to skip the flow chart because you have to come up with one. And then I'm going to go directly to the modules. So modules are as well a part of the flow chart that can be used to perform some different tasks like institution registration. You have a module there. So I just have that one as an example. And then we have the grouping of variables. So this is just to the grouping of, these are now the actual design of the tables comes in. So you have to design these ones as well. So you have this group is all about keeping. So you come up with some different groups. Like for me, I came up with the institutions, the payments, and the installation, that is the investigation. Then you have to mention the attributes that are being considered in those particular groups and maybe mention or explain it. And then now after that we have the other part is the input design. So after you are done with the flowchart and the modules, you have and also the grouping of variables, we have the input design. So this is where you start to design your tables, as you've seen me do there. You design them like that. You design, and also you have the form design as well. You design your forms there. So you require at least 4 forms. So I've designed mine like that. So you design your forms like that, and then you also design your reports, or how is the report going to look like in Microsoft Access. You also design the same here. I also designed some 4 reports like that. And then the last part is the general system security. It is just to ensure that the system stays secure, and you can be able to trust it with the data that you are going to feed it. And maybe you can mention some things about biometric access, encryption of data, and multi-factor authentication. Things like 2FA, that is a two-factor authentication, is what you can maybe mention from this particular case. And then you just give a summary of all those factors, and then you can end by saying we will make sure that all the data is going. These measures that have been set up here are going to make the system a bit more secure, and the user access can be controlled, and you can end that there. We are going to go to chapter 5, that is system coding. In this case, there are some particular important topics you have to consider. The first one is the introduction part of it, and then in this case you just mention some basic software requirements. In this case you just come and mention that in our case we require a GUI based operating system. You also have the Microsoft Access application software. You also need an antivirus software, and the other part that you can mention is the hardware requirements, just like I've listed there. And then the other part you give is the installation step. This is like a manual you are giving here. So these are the installation steps because of how you had designed your particular system. And then you can mention that after you launch the system, this particular dashboard, this particular form is going to be displayed, and then you can also give the credentials for logging in. In this case I give mine there, and then you can continue after you are done. I'm going to remove this space, and then you can have that. Then you can have some data manipulation. This case is just this in our case we are managing the forms or the operations through a common switchboard. So we are using this one, as you can see on my screen. And then you can also go ahead and show the forms for various functions, such as adding a new institution there, and inspecting a site as well there, the subscription as well there, if you'd like an institution to get connected to the internet. There is that particular form that we are going to use here. And then we have the other form for managing subscriptions. You will illustrate that as well. And then we have the other part, that is the reports. So you have to show where the reports. In my case, from my system, they were in this particular position. Then you can as well show us some samples of the reports that you are having, such as the subscriptions, the registered institutions, the defaulters report, the disconnected institutions, the infrastructure requirements, and the monthly charges as well. And then you can also have some advanced features, such as this particular extra report. And then you can also offer some troubleshooting guide for some common issues that can arise as you are using the system. So you have to mention them there, and also the troubleshooting possibilities for the same. Then we go to the second last chapter, that is system implementation. So here you consider some aspects such as staff training, the changeover strategies, and you'll be done with that particular part. So staff training, because remember this is a new system in which it will be required that the users or the new users get to know how to operate this particular system. So that is what we are breaking down here. And then we have the changeover strategies. So this is just to show how will you transit from using old data to these new data. So remember there were some different changeover strategies that we usually have. We have the parallel, we have the straight, and we have the pilot changeover. So it will depend on whatever you want to use. For the parallel, maybe as for me, I think it's the most convenient, because you'll be having both systems running besides each other. This is advantageous because if, for instance, the new system crashes, you will not have lost a lot of data than when compared to the other type of changeover, the straight changeover, where you cease using the old system and immediately start using the new system. So that is inconvenient, maybe when the data is lost and you don't have a backup. So in my case, I consider the pilot phase. In this pilot phase is where you test a system using some sample data, so that you see if it will meet the requirements, or the required or its objectives, to meet its objectives. So you use some dummy data. In this case, what I considered, but you can consider using some other phases as well. And then I can mention that the steps that will be involved, like these ones I listed here. We have data migration, the training, the testing, the feedback, and now after that we have the full rollout after you complete the pilot phase. And then these are some of the steps again that will be full rollout is now handing over the system to the owners. So you have the communication, data migration, training, testing, support, and evaluation. So those are what you do consider in chapter 6. Because chapter 6 is just trying to tell us how will the system change from, or how will it begin to transition from where it was developed up to reaching to the end users, so the Azani company in this case. Then we have the last chapter, that is chapter 7, that is system review and maintenance. This is not much of what you can maybe try to type out, but the main idea here is the resolutions that you and your team will make to come maybe after a short period of time and check on the progress of the system, and maybe determine, is it meeting the required objectives, or the set objectives? Does it meet the objectives? Does it require an upgrades? How often will you be coming and checking the progress of the system, or how the system is doing, and also maintaining where it is necessary to? So and then the other part you can mention is the challenges that you encountered. Maybe there are maybe a good example of this is the computers were not that adequate, or the manpower was not that adequate while developing the system. The funds were not adequate, or the time was not enough, or the training, or the personnel, that the software engineers that were writing that program, they weren't skilled enough, and maybe that was a challenge. And also testing. Yeah, so you can mention that, and then the other part you can also mention is the strength of the system. And now you can tell us the strengths of this new particular system. What has it brought to the Azani company? And then you can also have the weakness. Mainly it's usually one, it doesn't allow for multiple registrations and adding of records, because it's just because you just used Microsoft Access, in which at a time you can only be inputting one entry. So which means if you want to enter a couple of records, like 100 records, you have to enter each and every one of them one by one, and that again is time consuming. Then you can lastly now give your recommendations. The recommendation in this case is just what you'd like to, or what you'd recommend, so that the system remains stable, efficient, and secure as well. So I gave some 4 recommendations, and then you can have your conclusion. So there is conclusion from what you've developed, or what you can conclude and mention. And then you have a bibliography, to just a reference to which books you read, so that you can get the knowledge to develop such a system. And then you have the appendix, that is the what do we call them, these short forms, these initials. You can maybe try to elaborate them in full. For instance, KSH is Kenya shillings, RAM is random access memory, TB is a terabyte, is a unit of storage, SQL a structural query language that is used to create the system itself, because we are dealing with the records, and then GB is a gigabyte, and any other words any other initials that you may have written in short form, you mention them there, and you'll be good to go. So that has been all. We are going to now go ahead and jump into the database so that we can be seeing what was expected in the same. So let's switch to the database. So with me here is just a demo, or what I have with me, or what we've tackled. And the first thing I do is log in. So I provide my credentials like that, and I'm going to be redirected to the dashboard. That is, as you can see here. So before you go to the dashboard, you have to organize. This is a database. So a database, as you saw, is a collection of entities or a collection of tables that work together to store data and retrieve data. So you have to come up with what we call access objects in this case, because for this particular project, this is an example of a database management system, a DBMS, just like you've previously learned, and you are required to use Microsoft Access to come up with your particular project, so that you can be able to continue or be able to come up with such a system. So you have to prepare this particular project using two milestones, the first milestone and the second milestone. And each milestone has different configurations or has different documentation. But in short, you have to come up with the two milestones. Milestone 1 mostly is the documentation part of this particular project. Remember, you learned about the SDLC, the 7 stages of system development. So that is what you'll be doing in this particular project. So as for me here, I have the database. This database is normally developed in the 5th chapter of the SDLC, that is the system coding. So this is where I developed this particular database. So as you can see, I have a collection of tables, I have a collection of queries, and I have a collection of forms and collection of reports as well, macros and some modules that were used to automate this particular project. So with me here, I won't go into detail with every table or every query that is here, but we are still going to be seeing some of these as we go on. So with me here, as you can see, is the interface, that is the form, the main switchboard that is displayed. If I can log out again and try to display this form, this is a login form. This is where you have to access first before you can use the system, and then I can provide some credentials there, but I'll be sure to hash that password so that it doesn't become so visible. So the dashboard, as you can see, is divided into a couple of sections. We have this top section here where you can use to maybe add your users log out. You have the section for the reports that is used to display all the required reports that were given to us. And we have some statistics sections all the way below here. You can see that my system has made 63,300 from equipment sales and some 3.8 million from computer sales. Then we have some graphs here, and then we have some statistical data, and that is full in this particular page. So I'm going to go deep into the question paper once again, so that we can see. So you are told that Azani is a company that deals with provision of internet services and internet infrastructure. to learning institutions. So these institutions include this and that, and then you are further told that those institutions that are interested in the services should pay a fee of 8,500 to the company. Then you are given the a table here, and then you are told that the company then offers various internet services where the cost per month is based on the bandwidth as detailed in this particular table. So depending on the bandwidth that you want, the cost, as you can see, it varies differently. And then you're also told that when an institution requests for their services, that is internet and some other services, the company has to visit the site to establish the readiness for the institution so that they can have the internet installed. And then in the process, the company finds out the number of users and infrastructure requirements. And you're told that the infrastructure requirements are the computers and the local area networks. And further to that, an institution that has all the requirements and is ready for connectivity pays an installation fee of this particular amount, that is 10,000. You are told that if the institution has not met the requirements, you are told that they may purchase personal computers from Azani company at 40,000 shillings each. So the cost of one computer is going for 40,000, and then they may also purchase LAN nodes as detailed in this particular table. So you are given a cost breakdown for this particular setup. And then you have told that if an institution would like to upgrade to a higher bandwidth, they are given a 10% discount of the bandwidth they are upgrading to. So that simply means if you are previously using this 4 Mbps package and would wish to upgrade to this 10 Mbps package, you're not going to pay 2,000, but you're going to have yourself a 10% discount on these 2,000. So that means you are going to have 200 shillings deducted from this. That is now you pay 1,800 as your new subscription fee. So that is how it is. And then all institutions using their internet service are required to pay by the end of the month. So this another thing to note is we are not yet given a timeline for which the discount exists, but I'll tend to make sure that or I tend to believe that once you've been discounted, that is the price you'll be paying. And that is what it should mean. And then you are told that an institution that fails to pay is charged a fine of 15% of the amount as an overdue. That is the amount that you are supposed to pay. If it's 1,800, you'll be subcharged a fine of 15%. And then the internet services will be discontinued if the amount due and the fine have not been paid by the 10th day of the subsequent month. So if subscription was to end the January 31st and we go to February 10th and the amount due and the fine have not been paid, then the system should automatically discontinue you from using the internet services. And then you are told that once an institution pays the monthly bill and the overdue fine, a fee of 1,000 is subcharged for reconnection. So that is the brief system of how you are told to do it. So I'm going to go into my system once again and get to view the requirements. So as you can see here, I have some tabs that will be used to do a couple of different actions. And then on my top right, I have the report section to also display the required reports. So the first thing that you can do is to obviously add an institution, because that is what the system is doing. It's offering services to institutions, that is internet services. So you can maybe briefly try to add an institution there. I'm going to use that, and then I'm going to enter a location like that, and then this is just the required fields for us to recognize an institution. Remember the question was saying we add the institution details and the personal contact as well for the maybe the owner and things like that. I can as well enter my email like that, and then I choose an institution. I may choose this to secondary. The location, let me say in Nairobi, so I'll be able to add the same. So as you can see, the institution has been added successfully. So that is that. If I go back to my reports and view the institutions, I'd be able to see the institution that I've just added. Should be number 1 and then 1, as you can see. Here it is. So it means that particular bit is working fine. And then the other thing you want to do is inspect. So because we are told that if you go back to the particular question, it's talking about the company visiting the site to determine the requirements for internet installation or to check the status. So this is what this particular form does. So, and I'm going to choose that institution that I've just added. That is this the last one, I guess. It was 101, but I can still enter the same. And you can see the other details autofill automatically. The location is in Nairobi, and then after investigation, perhaps I got that there are that users, and the computing setup was sufficient, and the LAN setup was sufficient, and then in this case, these two will contribute to the overall status of this particular part. But if this particular setup is not sufficient, we are going to use a sample of another record so that we demonstrate how it does. So if I'm through here, I'm just clicking on connect user, and here there are a couple of things that happen. So when you click this button, it checks if these requirements are met, so that this particular institution is ready for internet installation. But if not, you have to sort it out first. But if I try to click again, there are duplication errors because you cannot insert a site twice after inspection. That is it. And yeah, you can be able to continue from there. And then you can also click on inspect to mark this site as inspected. So after you inspect, so we have added an institution, we've inspected it. So we are going to choose maybe one particular institution. I guess these ones are not tested. So I'm going to use that, and then maybe the users are 20, and maybe there is insufficient computers. So if I try to save these, I'm going to get an error that cannot connect because the requirements are not met. So what I need to do is inspect this so that I can add. So I'm told that the requirements are not met. So if I choose yes, I'll be redirected to this particular page where I can now enter the purchasing details. So for instance, if I require 10 computers, so I'm going to see that the total cost is going to be updated, and as you can see, 40 times 10 gives you this. And then because I didn't need any nodes, I'm going to complete the purchase, and then I'm going to connect the user, and I'm going to do that you can now connect the user as the status is now satisfied. That is after I buy the computers, and you can see the connection fee or the installation fee has updated. So you have that, and then you can be able to continue from there, and I can now connect this particular user. So that is how it does handle that. If you can go to the infrastructure table, you will see that the institution that we've added was this one that required a bit of 10 PCs, as you can see there, and it was updated successfully. So even if I come to my infrastructure requirements, I'm going to see this particular institution there. So that is basically what it does. And now we are going to install internet on this. So in this particular form, we can choose two methods. That is, if you are going to do a fresh install, or you are upgrading the package of the particular user. So I'm going to do a fresh install, and I'm going to use the same for my institution. And then I can choose a bandwidth. Let's just do that for this time. As you can see, all the rest of the details fill themselves. So I just choose a payment method, M-Pesa. I'm going to enter the reference number, or the number that is going to pay, and the length of the Cat6 or the internet cable that is going to be required. You can see it automatically calculates the same. And then I can choose the equipment that I require. There is a router and a receiver for internet installation, and I require only one. Then I'll be able to connect to this particular user. So they have been connected now successfully. But if I'd like to upgrade, I just come at this particular package and just search for the institution that I wanted, and I can search for it. You can see as we've added, the subscription details do appear. That is, this institution is currently using this bandwidth, so I can choose another bandwidth for them, and you can see that the 10% discount is going to be applied, and now the new subscription is going to be 1,800 because a 10% discount has been offered. And I can click upgrade package, and the user has been upgraded. So if I search the same user again, is 101, I'm going to see the new subscription as you've seen. So you can see that the package that we selected is this. But if I choose a lower package, I get that the selected package must be higher than the current one for an upgrade discount. So this is not going to prevent us from saving this particular record, because the user has chosen a lower bandwidth. So they will revert back to the original price as you've seen. So no discount is being applied here because a lower plan has been chosen. So we are not going to give the user any discount, and then we can return them back to the original bandwidth that they were. And then now after installing internet, the other thing is to manage the subscriptions. So I'm going to select. So this is where you manage subscriptions. So if maybe the user has some overdue or has some overdue fines, we are going to repay the same from here. And also if the user is disconnected, we are going to pay everything here plus the monthly bill. So I'm going to use the same institution, so that you can see that their status is currently active. Their monthly bill is this. Then there is no overdue fine, but we are going to test with a sample record with some overdue fines, and then in this case we can just choose to extend the subscription, but it's not a must you pay, but you are required to pay by the end of every month, just like we were told. So this just if the system sees you have an active subscription, it's going to offer you that particular option to extend your subscription. Yeah, so if I click on extend, you can see that this user has been extended after they make this payment to this particular date, that is the end of next month, February. So that is what it does, or what this part does. But I'm going to quickly go ahead to my payments table where these records are stored, and I'm going to intentionally make one of these records so that it can become disconnected. So for overdue, we cannot test for now because we have to wait until February, because the date today is on 22nd of January, and it has already passed the 10th day of January, so we cannot test that. But we are going to demonstrate with this one for disconnection. So if this record was based on December, we are going to see that the status for this is going to get disconnected. So if I restart my system again, you can see it tells me that one new disconnected institutions, and then I can come to here. I'm going to choose the institution that we added. So I'm going to choose institution 11, and as you can see, the status reads that this particular institution is disconnected. So they have to pay the monthly bill and the overdue fine. There is 10%, not 10 but 15% of the bill, and then they will also pay the reconnection fee. So all these three gives you the total they are going to pay. So if you pay, you are going to click on pay and reconnect, and you can see that the service has been restored, and now the user is active once again. So but the history has been marked. So if I go back to payment history, we'll be able to see that this institution was reconnected, and the amount that they paid together with the fine and the reconnection fee, and the status before was disconnected. So that is basically what it does. Then I'm going to also set another record to overdue so that we see what is happening. So I'm going to choose overdue like that, and then I'm going to restart my form so that the status gets updated. So as you can see, we have one new subscription, the one that we've just added. So it's still the same, institution 101. So you can see that the status is overdue. For overdue, you don't have a reconnection fee, so you only have the fine and the base monthly bill. So but if you will not have cleared this by the 10th day, the institution is going to mark your data as what do we call it, as a disconnected institution. So I can immediately settle my arrears. So if I click on settle, I'm going to pay that fee, and if I again go back to my payment history, I'm going to see that the action was overdue payment and the status was due, and I don't have any reconnection fees, but there is a fee that I paid. So that is how this due comes in. So the system now is back to normal, and if I go back again to my payments there, I can see that my record is back to normal. So that is what particularly is happening. So that is that particular table, and then there you can do that for this particular system because it's what was basically required, but you can still see that the statistics here are changing. So the subscription that was due has gone, and disconnected users is 1, because as you can see in the table, I guess you can see that this record is 1 that is disconnected. Then you have some graphs that will show the particular trends in what is happening. So that is this for this particular part. So this part here is going to return the total amount of earnings from those packages that have been upgraded, whose query is here. So as you can see, they both return the same value. So that is how it's calculated. So if you go to the design view, there is that criteria that was done for that. So the queries again are different as well. They have different implementations. So we have the query to get the aggregate service amount for each institution, and then you can view the monthly payments for the institutions. You can view the defaulters, the institutions that have been disconnected, the infrastructure requirements, and the payment history, the institutions, the investigations, the monthly usage, the monthly payments, the penalties history, the popular packages, the sign-in history, subscriber distribution, the top plans, and then you have the totals there. And then on this side we have the reports. So for the reports, you can view different reports. So if I click on this first one, this just displays the current subscriptions for my institutions. So you can see our institution is 101 here, has this particular subscription, and that is that. And then we have registered institutions as well. You can view the same. So this one I guess I had done. You can see that our institution is registered. We also have the defaulters, that is this one disconnected user. But if also we had some due subscriptions, we'd also consider that. But you can see this one institution there, and then we can also view the disconnected institutions. As you can see, there they are. And then I can also see the infrastructure requirements. So which institution requires this PC, the total PC cost, the LAN nodes, and the LAN cost. And then the sign-in history is not much relevant, but you can be used to track who has been signing into the system. And then you can also see the monthly charges for the categories. So you can see that for colleges, the total subscription is 4,000. The overdue fines are 0. Connection fees are 0. For the primary, they have the amount there. For the secondary schools, they have the amount there. And for the universities, they have the amount there as well. Maybe before we end the video, we can cover the last bit. That is the relationships of these particular tables. because you must come up with some relationships. So with me here, I had some relationships like that. So, and then you also need to ensure some things such as the referential integrity. So this just to make sure that the institution, anywhere you enter an institution, it must exist in the particular database, because we don't want to cause errors maybe while we are entering institutions that don't exist. So as you can see, I have some multiple links. That is just to show the relationship. That's how we were supposed to come up with. You just add your tables and then just drag a field and drop to the other table to show that there is a relationship with that. Like here you can see there is a bandwidth and the subscription plan, meaning that the bandwidth that is entered must match the subscription plan that is here, because you don't want to enter a bandwidth that doesn't exist. And then we also have the other relationships as well. So in this case, the institution that makes some payment has to exist, and also it must be investigated as well. So that is how it does. And then we have the history as well. The institution that is making history or that is being recorded as a history has to exist in the main table or in the primary table. So that is what basically the relationships do, or they try to show. So when you are coming up with such, you have to consider your fields and the relation that they share with the other tables, so that maybe you can demonstrate that. And yeah, if for instance you try to add irrelevant data, maybe you try to add an institution ID that doesn't exist in the institution's table, it is going to prevent you from saving that particular record, because it doesn't exist or isn't found, because you have to pass through the registration first before you can receive the services or buy anything. So that is the idea behind relationships, and I thought it good to cover it so that you can see how it does. So that is basically what this project does, and it is what was required for this particular database. So we are going to be doing the documentation part of it in a bit. So the last thing maybe you might want to is to add users. So you have a form there, you can add your users there, and you can be able to continue with the new data, or be able to use this particular data, so that you can be able to log into this particular system. So that is basically that for this database project. So I'm going to be preparing a documentation of the same. So I hope you'll be able to get everything. So this copy is available for purchase from us using the WhatsApp number on your screen there. So you can WhatsApp us so that you can get yourself a copy of this, and as well as the documentation after it comes out, or the milestones, milestone 1 and milestone 2. I know I didn't cover maybe some other minor parts, but I tried to cover the major parts that were required, and the computations as well. So all these queries here, they perform those computations. As you can see there, they have the total subscriptions, so it tells you that this package has a total revenue of that, and then the service cost as well. So there is that particular computation using this particular queries. I didn't go by each and every one of them, but they are all done. So that is that for this particular project. So contact us through the contact on your screen so that you get yourself a copy of this. So that has been all about the full project. We've done both the database and the documentation. So thank you for tuning in, and we hope that you've learned a lot from this and you can be able to apply. So thank you for watching, and see you in the next video. Bye bye.